My gosh, episode 10 of Lord of Mysteries. What a jam-packed episode. My brain is spinning with so many theories and ideas and whatnot. And yes, a lot of it has to do with the ending. We're going to talk about the ending. The episode's ending has a lot to talk about. But yes, we had the artifact's origins being revealed in this episode. More about the church being super sus. We had the whole thing with the true creator and the altar they created, that summoning ritual. They got a little bit into that. We had a femme fatale pop up out of nowhere. We have a possible pirate boss battle that's coming up here soon. This big pirate guy they're going to be fighting. And yes, the ending seemingly implying a time element. I don't think so. I'm not completely 100%. I mean, it's there. Like, I have this theory that there might be an alternate dimension with, you know, a different time period that he's tapping into through prayer. But there's a possibility the guy's just in a very secluded... I mean, this is a land that everybody's trying to find. I can totally see this being a secluded island that their language hasn't evolved for thousands of years because they've been so secluded from the rest of society that's been evolving. They're like stuck in turmoil and suffering under what looks like a bunch of like dragon beast things. So I can see them kind of being left behind. I guess it could be technically Beyonders that have lost control that are just rummaging the land. But anyways, we'll talk about that later. Let's just get through the episode like I typically do. Start from the very beginning, going through every single segment and get through it all. But yes, opening up the episode with everybody mourning the death of Neil. You have Klein going into his office, seeing all his memories of him hanging out with Neil. Again, sucks. I still hate the fact that they killed him off. He's such a good character. But yes, eventually getting a letter from Azek. And yeah, apparently Azek has ran off to Backland, and he's going to go check out the location there, see if he can see anything that will kind of spark some memories. And yes, leaving him behind. Hey, that mastermind hasn't made his move yet, but he might make a move now I'm gone. I like that Klein immediately goes, damn it. If this guy makes his move now and I don't have Azek with me, I'm screwed. I don't have my OP Azek with me no more. But yes, eventually having Dunn walk in the door and spot him. Now this is interesting because immediately when Dunn walks in the door, he asks him, you know, what he'd been doing, and it seems like Klein tries to change the subject, like I'll cover up what he was doing and go, oh, who's this thing? And he goes, oh, I didn't tell you. This is Insei Zhangwil, which apparently it's a wanted poster for him, that he was a archbishop that had lost control 3 years ago and ran off with the sealed artifact 0-08. And this is apparently a grade 0 artifact, and the idea that it is the highest grade in terms of danger and security classification. I like how Dunn specifically says this is a classification of one that you don't ask about, you don't talk about, you don't describe it, you don't pro about it. I'm like, if I was Klein at this moment, I'm going, so, how about that game last night? Hey, so, want to go to the bar? You want to go do something else? Like, immediately stop the conversation. But no, then Dunn's like, but the only thing we know about it's like, shush, I don't want to know about it. But no, anyways, Dunn mentioned the fact that this artifact, the only thing that's known about it is that it looks like an ordinary quill that requires no ink. Which this kind of makes me think of things like Bungo Stray Dogs or something like that. I hope it might end up being a Bungo Stray Dogs thing, which my mind immediately goes to things like the Roswell Diaries and stuff like that. Every single like piece of paper that Hanged Man or Justice ends up bringing him are always these like writings of Roswell that ends up coming true, the current situation. That whole like series of coincidences that Klein, at some point, because Azek brought it up, was sticking to the idea that everything that kind of comes up ends up being a coincidence, and so you should be on guard all the time. And it seems like every single one of these Roselle things that they bring to him, journals, end up coming true. Like literally this episode, they bring up this whole forbidden land, and sure enough, they bring it up. It kind of makes me wonder if all these things are wrote by this quill, and then it somehow finds their way to Klein to make that become existence. I don't know. It's supposed to be extremely dangerous. I could totally see it being something that literally writes into existence things, which is typically in a lot of these stories massively OP. Bungo Stray Dogs, when they handle that whole situation, did it beautifully. So hopefully this writer, if that's the case, does it well too. We'll see. But it was funny because yes, they brought the fact that the Holy Cathedral's orders are you report back immediately if he's discovered. If you don't, you will 1,000% be killed in the line of duty. Dunn, that was one of those moments where my client would I be asking, Dunn, have you had experience with this? Like, have you known somebody that spotted somebody and then just died in the line of duty? Again, church being super sus. I mean, that also begs the question of, is this guy really lost his mind? Question mark. Anyways. But yeah, that's when they get into how artifacts are made. And this is something I was actually very curious about, because I think back when they first revealed this little puppet artifact, I was like, wow, I really want to know where this stuff comes from. Like, are these things that are, again, from another world that come over to this world and they have some sort of powers given to them. Apparently, they're created whenever a Beyonder dies after losing control. I want to go back to every single Beyonder that has died and check to see if some object comes out of the picture. Because yes, technically, when Neil died, his 2 eyeballs hit the ground. So I'm assuming those eyeballs became an artifact. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Which implies that, yes, every single thing that they're pulling out there to use is something that has come from the body of somebody that has fallen. All those gravestones, when they're walking down there and they're seeing all those Beyonders that have lost control and died, they made an artifact, an artifact that could be sealed. Which they get into the whole sealed and not sealed thing, which this is the part that's kind of a little sketchy for me. Dunn says if they cannot be controlled, then they must be sealed. This is one of the sources of sealed artifacts. Again, the ones they put inside the chamber and they bring out to use. If they can be controlled, ? You don't want to know the answer to that. That, what? Wait, go back. If they can't be controlled, they're sealed and that's it? But why is it something that you don't want to know about when they can be controlled? It makes me wonder if Dunn's response to this is really an aspect of, if you know you're gonna disappear. Like the idea that those that know they're either of high power and it's a secret that they don't want anybody knowing about, and thus they'll erase you if you find out about it. It makes me believe that if they can be controlled and they don't have to be sealed away and put into this chamber, they're used or possibly even consumed. Could it be possible that if they can be controlled, the higher ups get a hold of them and they consume them to gain more power? Maybe they gain the power of the Beyonder themselves, or again, are they just carried with them at all times and they don't have to be sealed away and thus they're utilized? Again, the really suspicious part is the fact that Dunn says you don't want the answer to that. Why? Why? Unless again, it's you're not supposed to know. Very curious. But again, very cool to find out exactly where the artifacts come from. And again, it should have dawned on me. Anyways, that's when Dunn starts to, comfort Klein, saying, hey, man, this is stuff that happens all the time. You got to get used to it. Before, kind of offering a bunch of help for him, telling that he's going to, train him up, help him out with some stuff. If you have any questions, just ask me. It really does feel like Dunn is trying to take the place of where Neil kind of left a gap open. He honestly understands that Klein was very reliant on Neil. Neil was helping him out with his training and everything. And so Dunn's trying to step in there and say, hey, man, you've stepped up. You're sequence 8 now. You need some help. I'll help you out. You need to learn how to control your strength. Hey, I got somebody to train you and your spirit guidance and all that kind of stuff. He's really kind of stepping in there, which, yes, the entire time I'm feeling like you gotta stop flagging this dude. Do not flag Dunn. I mean, he's already coughing up blood constantly. I assume eventually he's gonna die, but not right now. let's wait another season before we do something like that. But yeah, he also brings him iced tea. That was cute. And then it's 22 tarot cards. He says, what do you need the tarot cards for? They're great for concealment, and they're really powerful. Great for killing on striking on the spot. But yeah, he said that his teacher that he got him is going to visit him around tonight at 10, and they're a sequence 6 spirit guide. I immediately, when he said tonight at 10, stay up, I'm like, it's gotta be Dally. Who else is going to show up at Klein's place late at night to help him with spirit stuff? I'm like, that means that she's gone up a sequence. I think after everything that happened with Klein moving up, she got to work to get her stuff digested so she could move up. Maybe she already had sequence 6 potion, and she's just like, crap, I gotta get this stuff together now. I'll pay whatever you want to pay. I'll do whatever I can to get that potion. Anyways, yes, he goes home, and we get a little brief scene with Melissa and Benson. Melissa's happy to see that he's in better spirits. I think the talk with Dunn kind of cheered him up a bit. Again, good boy Dunn. But yes, also Benson is studying up, trying to increase his salary because Klein's showing him up. He's coming home with another pay raise, and Benson's like, I gotta be big brother again. I gotta work harder. It was cool, him kind of giving him some advice, some things to study to help him out with his accounting and stuff. That was cool. But yes, when he goes upstairs, blows the whistle after putting a cloak up and summoning the little messenger that Azik wanted him to summon. The massive freaking skeleton thing in the room. That's not very small. But yeah, very quickly it dashes away because Dally shows up. I was, again, very happy to see Dally is kind of moving up there. That was really super cool. Interesting to see that she doesn't like the idea of being called a spirit guide. She likes the title of spirit medium. I wonder if that's a thing in translation. I wonder if in Chinese, spirit guide is less favorable of a name than spirit medium. Kind of curious. But yes, she's going to teach him 2 Beyonder skills, which is summon a messenger and spirit communication skill, ability to dive in a person's mind, all that kind of stuff. Yes, technically kind of funny, the fact of the summon a messenger thing, kind of tied with Azek sending a messenger. Yes, as they're doing a little training, eventually Klein's getting tired of consuming all this information, then Dunn just appears outside the window. Just poof, right in front of him, just creeping in the window. Dally says something to the effect of like, he's out scaring people in their dreams again. Like, this is like some joke that she had with him, that he goes around and just like spooks people in their dreams or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, apparently he offered her a wine and dine. So I'm officially shipping Dunn and Dally. I totally ship the two of them before they kill off Dunn. Anyways, no, he's got his urgent mission, so they head off to the Tengen Green Hill Mental Asylum, where we run into Hood Eugene, which, yes, was the individual that was at the ritual where they were summoning the true creator, which I'm assuming they're summoning the true creator, where they had the lady laid on the bed, the pregnant lady on the bed, and they were summoning something that went inside of her, which, again, I'm assuming is where they're trying to rebirth the true creator inside of this woman. But he was the one that was off the side summoning. He wasn't the one that was leaving. That was the other guy to get into, Lanavis. So yeah, it was like episode 6 ? I think it was. Towards the later part of there, was the two of them at that particular ritual. But yeah, Hood's going crazy. He's in there talking about this L guy bringing him cake. He didn't get his cake. But yeah, apparently this guy was living in the residential area as a regular citizen. Eventually he went mad. His beyonder abilities came out and it exposed him. And they want him to try spirit communication to find out what's going on. But yeah, it was cool when he goes in there. He's talking about the cake. Eventually the guy goes angry, saying that he's going to take away his cake. Guy jumps up. I'm wondering if the cake's going to end up being some sort of hidden secret message. I get the idea that it's probably because this guy, he's a Sequence 8 swindler. That's who Lanavis is. I'm assuming that this Sequence 8 swindler was, again, swindling the guy and skewing his mind to think that he needs to do this thing for a cake. And that's why he's obsessed with the cake. But yeah, anyways, guy goes crazy. Dunn uses his nightmare ability again, and immediately Klein realizes it's gotten more powerful, which suggests that, yes, Dunn has been, digesting his potion more. Anyways, taps in the guy with the spirit communication, goes to the spirit world that Dally was talking about, eventually ends up finding the guy inside there, and starts asking him questions. First, what order he belongs to, which is the psychological alchemist. Why they came there, which you get no answer. Who L is, which again is Lanavis, which is the Sequence 8 swindler guy that was getting from that ritual. Then he asks, why did Lanavis come to you? And this is where the dialogue gets a little bit weird, and it almost sounds like he's saying Klein is supposed to find out what exists behind him, but I think he's talking about himself. Hood said, you should be able to tell who exists behind me, and in a sense, the psychological alchemists have some relation to him. Again, implying here that Lanavis is telling him that the alchemists have a tie to what I'm assuming is the true creator, and that he's trying to use the psychological alchemists to help them with their whole scheme of trying to bring back the true creator. He says, with a little help, not only will you grasp the power of your potion and the way to avoid losing control, but you'll also be granted the godhood that all Beyonders dream of attaining, immortal godhood. So there's a few things in here. One being that he's offering him the ability to grasp the power of his potion without losing control, which implies this idea, or this, and this could again just be the swindler aspect. It could be completely a lie in order to swindle him, but it implies the idea of grasping the power of the potion without losing control could be some sort of information that, yeah, we kind of want to know about. Klein would want to know about to avoid losing control. Possibly this guy could, if he's not swindling, have information on avoiding that. But yes, what he's saying here also plays into the assumption here is that as you go up the sequences, you're going to obtain that godhood. But yes, when Klein asked him what he did, he created an altar for the true creator before his mind starts collapsing and Dunn shoots the guy. You know, they got caught in there. But yeah, they end up wrapping all this information together about the creepy altar and the shadow that resembles the true creator. And that, yes, there might be tied in with the Aurora Order and how the psychological alchemist might be hidden behind it all. Again, kind of tying everything together. What I'm assuming is the Aurora Order utilizing the psychological alchemists in order to achieve whatever they're achieving. Which really kind of shocks me because, again, this guy's only a Sequence 8 swindler, this Lanavis guy. And it seems like he's pulling a lot of puppet strings in the background. Again, technically, this other guy is a Sequence 7. And a Sequence 8 is pretty much manipulating the hell out of him. But yeah, Klein also brings up the letter to Mr. Z, which, again, was the one that was talking about the Doomsday arriving and sacrificing all of Tengen, which pretty much sparks Dunn to, like, yeah, we got to get this, we got to find this Lanavis guy. if this all stuff is coming together, if they made this altar for this true creator and all this stuff, and they're supposed to be sacrificing all this stuff, which my assumption right now is that, yes, because they summoned the true creator into this lady, and she's running around with this baby that might possibly be the true creator, it makes me believe that in order for that child to be, like, finished or complete or whole, or maybe even birthed, they have to sacrifice pretty much all the citizens of this entire town. We then cut over to what looks like somebody pinning some pictures onto a board. And I'm assuming whoever's doing this is possibly Lanibus, because they pin these two things up. One is this guy that we end up finding out is dead. But then it also has the person say, Miss Maynard howled with rage, shameless witch. And then it cuts over to Maynard, and she slaps this lady and says that, which makes me wonder if this is possibly Lanibus, and he's using his swindle powers to literally manipulate somebody from a distance. Kind of curious. It could be also that this board is what Klein is working on, because again, he's looking at this guy at that time, and it might just be dialogue of somebody nearby. Maybe Lanibus is in the room manipulating her at that time. I don't know. It's interesting how that was all played out. It doesn't seem like completely 100% exactly what was happening in that scene. But it all leads to the yes, that Klein was looking into this guy, come to find out he's dead. They arrived there, and apparently this Madame Sharon had visited him that night before, and apparently he was found dead the next day, which I'm kind of curious why they let her walk out of the room. Again, she's a socialite. They're kind of pointing out the fact that this lady's got power. She's very rich or whatever. She's very well known in this society, and so she kind of gets away with everything. So you have like the mayor come in, and he's like, "Yeah, I sent her to him last night. It's my fault, right?" And they just walk out the door. Like, they're not gonna keep her around until they figure out the investigation. Just gonna let her go. Again, people with power. But yeah, they go up there to the room, find him out. they show like all like these little shots where it looks like it's her like above him, and I'm like, well, at least the guy went out happy. It looked like he was really happy when he went out, so not a bad thing there, I guess. A little bit upsetting to his wife, though. It makes me kind of wonder if she's possibly in the assassin pathway. Kind of like another Trissy or something, I don't know. Oh, I almost forgot, yeah, technically when she's leaving, she looks at Klein, like, right off the bat, like, oh gosh. Of course she has to look to Klein. Everybody knows who Klein is, everybody's looking at Klein, everybody knows that he's involved. It's like, again, people look at you, Klein, you gotta throw up some red flags. But anyway, going back to the crime scene, yes, Fry says that he looked through it all. He says that it doesn't look like there's a Beyonder's influence there, and they ruled out homicide. So this is assuming that he just died of illness. Like, there, he just dead. Sus. But yeah, Klein sees the same thing, but he also says that he can't rule out the Beyonders because I was just looking into this guy. I seen that he was involved with a contract with Lanibus, and then boom, he's dead. That seems a little bit too coincidental. So because of this, he goes to the Fog realm and does another divination to find out, was a Beyonder involved with Maynard's death? Yes. Is Sharon tied to Lanibus? Is she a Beyonder? No response. Once again, something's interfering with it, which makes him wonder if possibly she's tied in with the mastermind, or if she's possibly just too powerful, that his divination does not work on her because she is a fake name or somebody's blocking it. Which that's when we decide to cut over to the City of Silver. Like, I was like, okay, we're going over here. Okay, well, let's put that aside. We're going over here. We shove over to the City of Silver, where we see something that looks like a dragon. I'm assuming it might just be a Beyonder that has lost control. And then it cuts over to a guy that is not doing too well. He goes to an altar, calls out to a magnificent deity, saying that he's willing to dedicate his life to them, and that triggers to Klein that he's receiving a new prayer. Now, this is interesting because I don't think he's ever implied that he's heard a prayer before. Now, I guess technically when Justice and Hangman, when they were doing the ritual on their own, he was able to hear or at least sense that it was happening. So maybe that's what he's talking about, that those two were prayers, and he's sensing the same thing here. It feels the same to him that somebody is calling out to him. Which is kind of a cool concept here, because it implies that Klein, as he's in this realm, will over time, from these different locations, which seem to be indicated by stars, and again, they could be alternate dimensions. Each one of these stars is representing a possible location that somebody's calling out from, or possibly just souls of individuals in the world. They can call out to him with a prayer, and he could pull them into that room, pull in people to become his disciples, basically. It's a cool idea there. But yeah, apparently at some point, Justice and Hangman showed up there. I'm guessing a time jump forward, and this is a different meeting, a different time that he came in there. but he was apparently in the middle of a meeting with Justice and Hangman. Justice brings up the fact that she got good news. That whole higher exam thing that he recommended is going through, to which he responds, man, she must have a lot of strong pull. Yeah, pretty much. He's like the princess of the kingdom. Sure. And then Hangman is seeking advice. He says the Aurora Order has been searching for a holy residence of the true creator. Again, every single time he reads something, because he cuts over the fact that he was reading something from Roselle's diary, talking about that he was trying to seek out this forsaken land of the gods. So he's making a connection there that Aurora Order is looking for the forsaken land of the gods. So again, you read it, possibly written by that quill, and suddenly it happens. Suddenly it happens. Which makes me really think that if somebody is pulling the strings in the background and again is writing these notes that he's just happening upon, and again, it could just be the fact there's somebody that is external, like a god or deity or something like that, that is manipulating him and is pushing in that direction. Yeah, if they can see the fact that the Aurora Order is working on this and they need his involvement, that's when they'll push him in that direction. They'll find some way of getting that message to him to push him in that direction. Again, it's a series of coincidences that seem to always happen around Klein that he was on top of before that he's forgotten because he was too busy looking for the stupid digesting of the potion crap. And then Neil dying. But it's more curious the fact that Klein's response to this is that's not something you should know at present. I guess the reason why he's replying that way is that he doesn't really have an answer, so he doesn't want to sound like he's not all-knowing. So he just basically says, no, you're not supposed to know that yet. He doesn't have an answer for him, and he doesn't want to look stupid. And then after that, Hangman decides to bring up to Justice that he needs some help, that apparently he wants her to look for an individual in Backland, which I'm guessing the reason why he's asking this question and even offering a massive reward is that he knows that she at least has power. I think at this point, Hangman knows who Justice is, because again, he's been sending the money over there. He knows that she's loaded, so she's got to be of royalty or very high nobility to have that much money. So he knows that she has connections, she has power, possibly. So he's asking her for help, saying it's a high risk, I'm going to pay a lot. He says, I'm looking for one of the 7 pirate admirals. Vice Admiral Hurricane Kilangos. Kilangos? Dude looks beefy, looks pretty crazy. I'm kind of curious if he'll end up being a Beyonder. I'm assuming he's a Beyonder. It looks like he's using some sort of like draining ability on somebody. Looks pretty crazy. I'm kind of assuming that we might possibly have like a whole scenario of following as she kind of looks into this individual and possibly having Azek join with her. I'm assuming that Klein could technically contact Azek, say, hey, go help out Audrey. She's going to be looking for this really crazy pirate guy. And then Azek can join up with her. It'd be cool to have an entire episode of Audrey and Azek going around. I didn't think about that. Azek kind of gave up on love. Maybe he might get with Audrey. I don't know. But anyways, that's when he gets the prayer again. They called out for him again. I like how Klein's all like getting distracted by this thing, and Audrey's like, "Oh, is he gonna show us a miracle?" I like how like the difference in there and what like with Hangman, he's like asking the question about the whole forbidden land or whatever, and he's like, "You don't need to know about that now," and he starts shaking because like, "Oh, have I asked a bad question?" And over here, Audrey's like, "Oh, can we see a miracle?" But anyways, yes, this individual says they're going to offer their blood, and the entire time Klein's trying to figure out the language, and eventually realizes it sounds like Jotun. Which, yes, in the little mid-card, we did find out about the different languages, and the idea there's the ancient Hermes language, which comes from nature and similar to Joyon, Dragonese, and Elvish, which implies that we have a Joyon, Dragonese, and Elvish, which that does tie into a previous kind of question mark that I had. I didn't realize that as that came up on the screen. That yes, back when Klein went to that underground market, they did get something that was like Elvish. I think it was like a spring water of Elvish, something like that. And I was curious at that time if there was going to be an Elvish race. Now they have an actual language for it. So this does imply to me that there is possibly a Dragonkin and an Elvishkin question mark. I don't know. Anyways, the ancient Hermes, as a result of using the language, are very direct and effective, but lacks necessary concealment and protections, which makes me think that possibly using it as some sort of kind of magic or something like that possibly leaves itself open, question mark, which means it's very easy to put the user in danger. Another language, Hermes, directly formed from Jotun and is the common language of humans during the Fourth Epoch. It is also the root of the northern continent's various languages in the current era, so implying that it's kind of just derived from it over many centuries. Which, yes, what we get from here is that, again, Jotun is a very old language. And yes, what Klein says here, it's an ancient tongue that's thousands of years old. So, implies the idea that, again, possibly this guy's from a different time period. Or, again, my theory, he's just from a land that is completely disconnected from current civilization. Again, the forsaken land of the gods that everybody's seemingly trying to look for right now. And even Rosal back there was trying to look for it. Nobody knows where these forsaken lands of God is. And that would imply that it's probably some secluded island, possibly has some sort of barrier around it that prevents ships from finding it or something like that this guy's calling out from. And it would make sense why it looks like this guy's from, like, some medieval times, because it implies the idea that this is a forsaken land that is probably just full of destruction and chaos. It looked like that based on that brief glimpse that we get going through there, that you have, like, what seems like possibly some sort of monsters or beyonders that have lost control that are rummaging the land like crazy. But anyways, yes, Klein ends up pulling the guy in there. Immediately the guy looks up and he sees not just Klein as a big spiritual being or a shadow, but also Hangman and Justice as the same. Now, this made me kind of go back to episode 1 because I couldn't recall how each individual seen each other when they first arrived. And sure enough, what I kind of suspected there was that when Audrey first opens her eyes, she's the first perspective that we have of this area. Audrey first arrives there, she looks over and she sees something walking towards her, a massive cloud coming towards her. And it ends up being Hangman, implying the idea that he is much bigger than her. And then they both look over to see Klein, who is much bigger than them. Now, with this individual appearing there, he sees all three of them, and you have the depiction of the two of them on the sides and then Klein. The fact that Hangman and Justice are much bigger and they're the same size makes me believe that now that, obviously, Justice has become a Beyonder, she has reached the level of what Hangman is at. And again, would make sense that they are progressing extremely fast because they all know the active element of essentially digesting the potion. So they're all getting stronger much faster. And unlike the first episode, Justice is, getting equal to Hangman. Cool stuff. I don't know if I'm reading too much in that, but it seems like that symbolism is, purposeful. But yes, the guy asks if he's a god, and he says, nope, not a god, just a history-loving fool. Which that kind of makes me wonder if, again, it is a different time period, but again, I'm thinking it's because he just knows this guy has, a historical language that is unknown, and thus he's curious about it. But yes, the two of the other ones introduce themselves before he says to choose his card, and he chooses Sun. Which that makes me wonder if possibly he's tied in with the sun god, the sun deity over there, if they have a lot of belief in the sun god over there. Question mark. Again, a lot of interesting stuff. I'm very curious what the next episode will be. I'm kind of wondering if this pirate boss guy is going to be like the final boss of this core. Like this will be the big ender, the big closer for this season is going to be, again, Justice, Azik, and maybe Klein joining up to fight him. I don't know. I can see possibly the next episode maybe looking into who this guy is and getting the history of the Forsaken Lands. I don't know if they'll get into that stuff quite yet, if possible just have him introduce himself and he'll give him some advice and then send him on his way. But I'm kind of wondering if we will get a perspective of Audrey, again, teaming up with Azik, looking for the pirate guy, and then eventually calling to Klein, or if we'll just go straight into getting more about Lanibus and this Prager lady. I'm surprised he hasn't really connected that yet. Anyways, a lot of stuff to digest. A lot of potion to digest. I hope I covered it all, but I thank you guys for watching this video as always. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And as per usual, thank you to all the source material readers for keeping the lips zipped for all those spoilers. Again, as I kind of do speculation, I don't need answers for this stuff, but I appreciate you guys. If you made a comment down there and I just said this and you're like, crap, go delete it. Nobody else wants to see the spoilers either. We're all having fun exploring the story as we go. But I appreciate you guys' support. I hope you guys enjoy the video as always. If you want to support this content, become a member of the channel. Until next time, y'all take care.